Hi, good morning. Thanks for joining us. This is Jen. I am here with Laurel Proulx, and I'm going to let Laurel introduce herself in just a second. But super excited to bring another spotlight to you all and give you another perspective of what milspo life can look like with a little bit different twist. So I've been a huge fan of Laurel's for a long time, and I'm super excited to have her here to tell you guys a little bit about what she's up to and how she kind of carves her own path alongside her service member. So, Laurel, why don't you give us a little intro?
Hi, thanks for having me this morning. My name is Laurel Proulx. I'm a physical therapist. So I've worked clinically, kind of in the orthopedic sports medicine world. And then I actually found research at Fort Sam Houston at Brooke Army Medical Center and kind of fell in love with that side of things and looking more at access for both active duty and spouses in that realm. And then I've also the whole time really loved working in women's health and pelvic health. And so once I had the opportunity to move forward with research in pelvic health, I decided it was time to get my PhD and dive into. I actually didn't decide that. Someone was like, "You're doing the work, you're getting it."
You might as well.
Okay. And so right now I'm a student moving forward with pelvic pain research in the active duty and civilian population. And then I've treated clinically for pelvic health too. So I love doing a little bit of everything. I've worked full-time in research. I've worked full-time treating patients, and I like the mix. And then because, as you know, we know each other from Germany.
Right.
So after that kind of international move, I was like, how do I be a physical therapist in another country?
Right.
And so have really started diving into the online platform of education and telehealth and how can we improve medical education and medical literacy for this population through Facebook and Instagram and newsletters and all the things that kind of other businesses are doing really well, but the medical field is just catching on too. So
yeah, and we'll give some information of how to find Laurel, but you guys have to check out her Instagram. Like her videos are fantastic. There's kind of something in there for everybody, and it's such a kind of an easy. Just an easy way to understand some of these topics that you just wouldn't have had the ability to be exposed to otherwise. So if you haven't checked it out, please check her out. And while I'm thinking about Laurel, go ahead and tell everyone what your social media handles are.
It's FEM unfolding. So it stands for Functional Evidence-Based Movement, if that helps you with FEM.unfolding.
Awesome.
And unfolding just because we're all kind of figuring it out. So starting it as an education platform, I hopefully move into some coursework. And then the same thing with just women as we are just kind of going through different stages all together. And so I hope it's a place where people can ask questions, really engage, get some information, and they don't feel like they have to have it all figured out.
Right. So. Well, and that's the part I love about what you're doing is I feel like it really does kind of apply to everyone because there's a lot of content that is really more focused on younger people and younger women, more pregnancy focused or even pre-pregnancy. And then there's also, I think, a ton of content that is really also applicable to anyone, but also focused on the folks who are kind of beyond that stage of life, which I think is a lot of, our audience at Pride and Grit. And so I think folks would definitely find something there for them. To that note, one of the things I wanted you to kind of talk a little bit about, because it's what I learned from you, is like when you and I first met and we started talking through this, I was amazed at the number of things I learned in just 1 hour with you that I just didn't know before, that no practitioner had ever shared with me about my own body. And so if you could kind of give us a couple like key myths that you find folks having about pelvic health, about kind of their own connection to kind of their pelvic health and what that looks like for people.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's so many because like you're saying, we just don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that our medical system is set up everywhere is it's so siloed, right? So you see someone for GI dysfunction, you see someone for pre-post baby, then you see someone different maybe for your annual exam.
Right.
And then if you have low back pain or hip pain, maybe you're to an ortho. Those are kind of all areas that pelvic health physical therapists work with. So we see people with constipation. We see people post-surgery, whether that is a C-section, a hysterectomy, an endometriosis surgery. And we see people pre and post baby, and then also young athletes that have hip and low back problems that aren't resolving, and that pelvic pain or pelvic floor musculature plays a big role in that as well. So even though it's this small area of our body, it's right in the middle, and it kind of contains all systems. And so we work closely with a lot of physicians. And so I think one of the biggest myths is that you have to be peeing your pants to see a pelvic health PT, and that's all that we
absolutely
deal with. And that's just a fraction of what we deal with. And that's really the easiest thing that we deal with. So if you are having incontinence, go see a pelvic health PT. It is our bread and butter, and you will resolve it. But that's not all that we do. The other thing is that if you are having incontinence and you got prescribed Kegels or pelvic floor contractions from your physician, that's all that there is to do for that. And so if those didn't help, or you say like, I do my Kegels and this is still happening, there's so much else that we look at as pelvic health PTs and the function of this whole system that can intervene and resolve those issues. So know that you have options if Kegels aren't working for you.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was really fascinated about, was just really, I mean, when we think about the body, obviously it's all incredibly interconnected, but the role of kind of the pelvis in everything. Like I had back issues and had, some like tight hips, which then I thought, okay, I'll just continue to stretch this forever and eventually it'll loosen up, but it wasn't. And, part of what I think was so fascinating to me working with you was just understanding that this whole category of therapists and clinicians around pelvic health is not something my doctors had ever mentioned, in spite of me mentioning some of those issues in the past. It was, do these stretches at home, but you really sometimes need someone to like walk you through it and help you see, you need to, tighten this certain way or stretch this certain way to really achieve what you're trying to achieve. And I just I didn't know, we don't know what we don't know, but I was disappointed, I think, learning that there was this specialty that I think sometimes we think that we can only go to like this level of specialty. Somehow we've like elevated it in our heads that this is, to your point, like this category of people that is really bad off in terms of their health. That's when you go. And it's like, no, you can go earlier. You can set a foundation earlier. I know you do a lot of work with kind of pre-pregnancy and helping make sure people understand their body before so that they can understand how it's different after, which I think is, super helpful to anyone who just, the awareness, I think, is key to knowing when something's off.
Right. I also think it's important to know, I think it's a great message that you're saying that you don't have to be at this certain level of dysfunction. If you are having any sort of discomfort, or this doesn't feel like me, or I'm having issues with XYZ, to seek out help. And I think especially in the military community, we get stuck with, I can't get a referral to this. Or my provider didn't give me a referral, or they didn't know about it. And I had a great conversation last night with a previous patient who's kind of taken on this advocacy role as a profession. And she made a good point that as the patient, or as the person that's seeking out help, you are really the one in charge of building your care team. And that can be really difficult, but I always recommend people to take in a card or take in the name of a person that you want to see and say, I want to see this person. And they'll get the referral to you. And if they're not, go to your TRICARE rep, and it should be something that can happen. And so know that just because one person doesn't know about it, that it's not that this whole thing doesn't exist, or that it's not available to you, that you're excluded from it for some reason. And that's really a lot of the education I've been trying to do around providers in the military network, is that even if there's not a pelvic health PT on base, that there are probably pelvic health PTs in your area that are available to these women and that deserve to be seen. So some other myths are really that a strong pelvic floor. So pelvic floor is supposed to support, close, and then is also supposed to relax and open. So so one of the myths is that a super strong pelvic floor is a functional pelvic floor. And really we found that a lot of women that have pain, that are great athletes or are used to like running, lifting, biking, actually have an overactive pelvic floor. And so, and in times of stress, in times of anxiety,
right.
And like all these things creep up, and it's not a coincidence that these things are changing stress levels. And so, building awareness between your brain and those muscles, as far as I can feel it when I'm clenching. If you're the type of person that walks around during the day with their butt clenched or with their jaw clenched or with their shoulders up,
I do that.
Yeah. It's a good thing to kind of relax all of that, because the more our pelvic floor can relax, then it can respond appropriately to be able to keep you dry or keep you out of pain or support your low back or support your hips during function. So we really do a lot of education of being aware of those muscles and how to relax and contract, and just being aware of our daily habits. These muscles respond a lot to stress, anxiety, and fear. And I think I used the analogy for you that men, their stress, anxiety, and fear, their muscles that have been shown to contract are like their upper traps. Like they're in this like fight mode. And I tell women, I'm like, ours are like protect the eggs. It's like an overactivity.
That's so funny.
And I have no scientific basis for that at all, but that is
it totally makes sense.
The visual that I utilize, and I think it works pretty well.
It does.
And then other myths are just that things are out of alignment. So if you are used to getting chiropractic care pretty often, I think that chiropractic care and physical therapy are actually better as a profession, interesting enough. Where we used to be kind of like all exercise, and chiropractic used to be like all adjustments. And now physical therapists do manual therapy, and a lot of great modern chiropractors do a lot of movement analysis and exercise prescription as well. But one of the things that I hate to see women come in is like, this is out, like my hip is out, my back is out, my SI joint is out. And it's just, unless you've had like a traumatic dislocation, which is possible, but it's not out. It's not out. And so it's oftentimes muscle imbalances. It's oftentimes, pain in certain ways actually remaps our brain and the way that it feels. So you can like feel physically shifted because that's your new normal, but it's not. And so knowing that our bodies aren't fragile, our bodies are super resilient, and to not be afraid of certain movements. I see a lot of women that are in pain that are really afraid to move, and knowing that movement helps pain, moving within your threshold, and really working with a practitioner that's going to educate you around movement that's good for you, and not just rest it off, like lay down,
ice it and wait.
Wait. Like the longer we put something off, the longer that we rest it off, that pain kind of takes over in our body, and our body gets used to it. It's harder to get out of that pain cycle. So I think that that's one of the biggest things, is to not be afraid of movement and know that we need to be proactive.
Well, and I think to your point, if you are afraid of movement, then partner with someone who can help you work through that fear in a way that's deliberate and is effective, and has a basis in the body's abilities, so that you don't push yourself in ways that might cause harm, but you do try to help correct the things that got you where you were in the first place.
Right. And I don't mean like you sprained an ankle, you should just continue running 5 miles a day.
Of course.
But it's people that are like in chronic low back pain, in chronic pelvic pain, have had this hip pain for years, and just are now the people that are like, I don't do that because I have a bad hip. I don't do that because I have a bad knee. And it's like, well, let's see what's actually going on, and let's see what is what your body has gotten used to. So your body's protecting it. It's
right.
valid.
For a reason.
For a reason.
Right.
And so trying to figure out the root of the problem instead of just the avoidance.
I'm so guilty of like using, oh, well, if this is over 40, like this is what happens. I'm starting to fall apart, which is so not like, I know in my core that's not true, but it, you know.
Well, and like natural aging is a thing.
Sure,
like
sure.
But natural aging doesn't have to equal pain.
Right.
And it doesn't equal pain.
Right.
I tell people it's like wrinkles. Gets wrinkles, wrinkles don't hurt.
Right.
So the same thing with like there are images of low back images of people beyond 50, and the majority of people have a herniated disc. The majority of people don't have back pain. And so this like natural aging process of our bodies doesn't equal pain.
Right.
And so really find the root of the problem instead of like falling into imaging or I have my back, I have that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Okay, so I want to make sure we get to some of the milspo stuff. So let me ask you just a couple more sort of PT related questions. So I know you've done some videos that were specific to athletes. I know you had an interview last night with someone that was super interesting. And then I've seen a couple other videos where you've talked about kind of the unique needs, if you will, of a strong, pelvic floor and recovery for athletes. So talk a little bit about that for those who might be kind of in that situation.
Yeah. So much to say about that.
We go on for days. We'll do a whole nother one on this.
Yeah. But I think the big things are, I do treat a lot of women postpartum or post-surgery to get back to what they love doing.
Right.
And treating the pelvic floor just like any other part of the body that deserves rehabilitation. Right. So like if you have knee surgery, you're going to get a referral to a physical therapist and you're going to have a return to run program. C-section and you're sent home to care for another human being without any rehab. And so I don't get it. And they're like cutting through all your stabilizing muscles and all the things. And you had a 9 to 10 month lead up of body changes before that. So it's not just a one kind of acute thing. We have a chronic change in our body, and then we expect 6 weeks, 30 days, whatever, to be back to doing what you were doing. And so it's not only time that we need to give ourselves, which a lot of people are like, I'm giving myself time, but it's true deliberate rehabilitation.
Right.
And so the muscles around our abdomen and our pelvic floor work in a unique way that they anticipate movement. And so they support right before a movement. There's a lot of different muscles in our body that do this. But after surgery, after pregnancy, that anticipation reaction is blunted. So it doesn't really work the way that it should. So that's the main thing that we need to work on, is retraining those muscles to click on before a movement to help stabilize our back so that we don't get that catch.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, to help keep us incontinent right before a jump or a sit to stand or something like that. And so I think that's the biggest message, is that these muscles really need deliberate and intentional rehabilitation before we move on to return to fitness.
Yeah.
So this kind of like rehab, and then once you get core coordination happening, then we can move on to a gradual return to fitness. And so even people that are like, I'm just doing slow jogs, I'm just doing this, I think that they're missing that intentional part of it.
Right.
So I think that's a big thing. And then also working with someone that a lot of women work with a trainer who just had a baby and looks great. Right. So she's going to be your person.
Right.
What I try to tell people is she figured out what worked for her.
Right.
Unless she has taken some prenatal or postpartum continuing education, which there are some great ones out there and great trainers that do that. Just because she had a baby does not mean that she is fit to help people who just had a baby.
Yep. No. Because it is a different conversation that that should probably be happening to kind of ensure optimal long-term health.
Right.
Yeah.
And the same thing I see with, different like post-surgical. I work with an individual who had a pelvic surgery, not pregnant, not postpartum, and is amazing shape, and really felt confident that her fitness background would be sufficient to get her out of this surgery.
Right.
And I think that it's a different skill set and a different knowledge base. And it's just like, I don't know how to deliver a baby. Like, you don't want me delivering a baby. That physician doesn't then know how to rehab you. Right. Like, we have different skill sets.
Right.
And the same thing, maybe post hysterectomy, as this woman, like, she can get you good and strong and fast. Then you don't know about the organ systems and the support structures and those sorts of things. So really not being afraid to find people that have different sets of knowledge and putting a care team together.
Right. Yeah, no, that's really good advice. And I mean, ultimately we know this, right? Like, our health is an active thing. Like, we have to be involved if we really want to kind of have optimal health, and whether that's with our practitioners or with kind of other people we bring in, like, we can't be passive about it. It's just not going to work.
And there's a few resources. If you go on the American Physical Therapy Association website, there's like a find a provider section.
Okay.
So you can go by location, you can go by specialty, so like women's health, sports health, that sort of thing. But it's a really good resource. It's a little more specific than Google, and it can really be effective for finding someone in your area.
Let me ask you, just we'll switch off in just a second, but I was just thinking about that. How, like, what would you advise someone who's having a conversation with their practitioner and they feel like, okay, they really feel strongly that maybe this is what they need. They need to kind of escalate, if you will, to, more of a specialist, but their practitioner is giving them a little bit of pushback that, they really want them to kind of cross these other 4 hurdles before they sort of go that route, if you will, and they get that referral. I know you're spending a lot of time trying to educate practitioners, but as a patient, like, how do we sort of make the case for that need?
Yeah, so I think it's difficult for a patient, and I've fallen into that category myself. And on the pelvic health side, like, I have a lot of great stats that are like, if you see a pelvic health person before, we're reducing surgeries, we're reducing time of pain, we're reducing time of incontinence, but a patient doesn't know that.
Sure.
And so what I would go with is a card of someone
right.
that
you
mentioned to go to, or a contact, and just say, can you give this person a call?
Oh, okay.
Or can they contact you and
right.
let them know what they'll be doing? Because I really would like to get into them sooner rather than later, to not, honestly, like, a lot of medical providers are under the pressure of keeping medical costs low.
Right.
And so if they're making you go to an MRI first or all this testing first, say, I really think that we could save a lot of unnecessary testing and money if I go to this person first.
Okay.
And it's true. It's not.
Right.
But they are probably under an algorithm, right? Like, someone that comes in with this has to do this, this, and this before we send her a referral.
Right.
And you may not be able to get out of that algorithm, but if we can speed up that, then that's good. The other thing is, if they just are not giving you one, like, oh, we don't do that here.
Right.
This is what we do. Ask to have them document in your file that they refused to give you a referral.
Okay.
Gets a little fire lit every once in a while.
Right.
It's like, oh, I don't want that. Okay, sure. Here's a referral, because they need to document that they refused a medical referral.
A request, yeah.
Many of them aren't, because it's just a conversation. But I think the first step is, can you personally contact this person? I would like to get things moving. I think we could save a lot of time and money. And then if it's just no, we don't do that here. Okay, I would like for you to document that you refused a referral to pelvic health PT for X, Y, and Z, and I'd like a copy of that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I imagine that might work on occasion.
Yeah. It feels very scary.
It feels super. Yeah, I know.
they're a person doing their job and you're trying to take care of yourself.
Sure.
And so,
and ultimately that should be your focus.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. I know we just have a couple minutes, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the milspouse piece, because one of the things I love about kind of what you're doing is, especially overseas, but I think anywhere, overseas in particular, though, so many people come over and maybe they're partway through a degree program or they're, partway through a nursing program. And I know every profession's a little bit different and the rules are different. But I was fascinated by the fact that somehow you've managed to, complete your PhD, complete your education, shift your focus and your business into a different, a different channel, and do all of that from Germany. So for those who, feel like they're kind of stuck or feel like they're moving to a place where they don't know how to continue the work they've already done, can you kind of give some folks some ideas of how you were able to make that happen?
Yeah. First of all, I would acknowledge that, like, my husband and I don't have any children yet. I'm in a unique position, kind of made up our mind that this season would be, I'm really focusing on finishing my PhD. We're kind of going in different directions all the time.
Right.
And so I think going into whatever move or whatever change in profession and knowing what this season of life is looking like for you and respecting that. Because I know that we will have different seasons of life where I would never be able to do something like this. Sure. Because I have little kids and that sort of thing, or because of expenses. And so knowing what season of life you're in, but then don't be afraid to pivot and Right. know that you can stick to what your personal mission is or what your personal passion is, and really taking time to hone that in. My personal mission and passion is to improve education advocacy for women's health. And so kind of everything that I choose to do revolves around that in different ways. And that may look different based on where we go, but I can continue to move forward with that. And so the PhD piece, when I looked for a PhD program, I really looked for something that we could move with. And so there Right. are only, I think there's only one.
Oh, really?
Hybrid PhD in physical therapy program. And so knowing that it would take 3 to 4 years and that we would have a move in between there, that was really important to me. And my advisors also let me know that no matter how are expected to be here when they're on sites.
Right.
And so there really was no leeway there with coming back and forth to Germany. So figured out space A, figured out commercial flight, really trying to make it work. As far as the practicing piece of it, being a medical professional and being overseas is really difficult if we're on a small base and there aren't jobs available. Mm-hmm. So the only way we can retain our practicing license is if we are working on base, because we're then under the federal, we're in the United States.
Yeah.
Right. If we're on the economy, I could not get a German physical therapy license to practice on people without speaking German.
That makes sense.
Wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. Right.
So things that I could do with my skill set are I'm teaching classes on base. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing people in kind of a wellness consulting mode. So not really treating a specific diagnosis or diagnosing people, but giving them guidance of getting back to movement that they want to with pelvic health concerns. So working within your parameters and knowing, like, can I teach people? Can I mentor people? Mm-hmm. How can I turn wellness or education into a business? And online has really been a great place for me to do that.
Yeah, no, you've done amazing at it.
I told myself I would take a year to just build a network, right? Like reach out to people, build a presence, really not worrying about a financial return.
Sure.
And then in the second year, I really hope to be putting out courses that I've been working on. And so our military network is amazing. Mm-hmm. And like we have an audience that trusts us, and we have an insight into their lives in a different way that other people do not.
Right.
And so not only is it an amazing support network, but it's also an amazing business network. Mm-hmm. And so respecting that and honoring that could be a great place to jump a business off of. So we'll be moving in May, June, out of Germany to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. I'll be in Kansas City. Yeah. And
I love it there.
And I'm thinking about that I was like, yes, I'll have this great city and I'll have gyms that I can work with and I can treat patients. But I think that like keeping this network as strong as I have because I've been isolated is actually a really great business move.
No, and it's a whole new skill set you've learned that now you can kind of leverage in a lot of different ways.
Totally. And I think that is, I was talking to my sister-in-law about that last night. It was like one of the best things that's come out of like this physical isolation has been the skill set of how to communicate with people online, how to build content, I've had the time to figure out a skill set that I would never have the time to do if I was working full-time clinically.
Right.
And I'll take with me once I jump back in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's awesome.
So, yeah, not being afraid to take on things that you have no idea about. Like, I grew up in a household that you didn't start something unless you were going to be great at it.
Right.
And that stopped me a lot of times from trying new things.
Sure.
Because I was like, if I'm not going to be professional at that, I'm not even going to like do it.
Yep.
And being thrown into so many new situations has taught me that like I wouldn't do anything. That was what was criteria to keep me going, right? And so ask for help, reach out to different resources. Don't be afraid to be the beginner at something.
Right.
And like me being a beginner is maybe the only way that information would get to some people.
Sure.
And so sometimes it's like, it's not about you. Your responsibility to get your skill set into the hands of people that need it. Right. So letting that be motivating.
Yeah, no, I love that. There's a group that I'm a part of, and they were on a call yesterday, and they were talking about just the reminder that like everybody starts at zero, everybody does. And so you just have to kind of keep trying different things and keep trying to figure out what's going to work, and, be willing to be a little creative and be, a little fearful is not a bad thing. It can help drive you into things that you wouldn't have expected to really, be a great benefit to both you, but your business and just, other people as well. So it's awesome. So
I also think you bring up a good point of like finding a network of people that are interested in maybe like starting a business or entrepreneurship or whatever the thing is that you're getting started in. Because I have great friends who are super supportive who would never get why I do, like why you need to do certain things.
Right.
And so I have a great network of people, masterminds, those sorts of things. And even like people that I only know on Instagram who will like kindly reach out to me when I do something, and they're like, I'm worried about how much time you're going to have to enter in these people's emails manually. Here's how to get them to like go to a landing page and enter an email. And I'm like, oh my God.
What a great idea.
Thank you so much. I had no idea. And so it's
that's
like
awesome.
That. It's like, you don't know if you don't, but finding a group of people who are trying to solve the same problems as you, I think is super valuable.
And who are willing to share, like there's no competition, right? They're willing to put themselves out. And this is the, the part where I think, I don't know, I feel like the tide's shifting a little bit. And I feel like there's a lot more emphasis on, just lifting each other up and trying to help each other and not being afraid that another voice is going to make yours quieter. Like there's room for both voices to reach the people they individually need to reach. So I love that the folks have been that for you. That's awesome.
Can I say a little bit? I forgot about one thing with the milspo and being a medical provider on a base. So I don't know how to say this, but you have a unique skill set. You have spent a lot of time and energy getting your degree, and you should have value. And so, yes, our medical spouses volunteer.
Right.
Like we need to. And I'm not saying do not volunteer.
Sure.
But have boundaries as to how much you are willing to help your community, and know that you have value and you deserve to have financial reward for your hard work just as much as your spouse does. And so I think that that's a huge thing that we need to hear, to advocate for ourselves, that oftentimes we're not expected, because the military takes care of us, to want or need financial return for our skill set.
Right.
And that we should be just supporting our community.
Yeah.
And I think that both are possible.
Oh yeah.
And, and so I think that knowing that, valuing yourself, and that recognizing your own value is not selfish. And,
right.
and that's something that I think a lot of women, a lot of military spouses, there's multiple layers, and then the expectations of and the needs of our community can all be met with knowing your value, having some boundaries, and you're not going to be bitter then when you do provide those services to people because you're excited to help people.
Right.
I think that's important.
No, it's a really good point. And you're right. Like overseas in particular, I think it's a tough challenge for people to decide how much of themselves to give, because it's kind of their only way to stay connected to the field unless they sort of go out and, develop something else on their own or, kind of step outside their comfort zone a little bit more. But, awesome. Anything else you want to add in before we hop off? I know you shared your Instagram. Yeah, no, always. I know you shared your Instagram. Your website is Femme Unfolding as well?
Yes, it's femmeunfolding.com. My business is Femme Physical Therapy. The website may be changing to Femme Physical Therapy. So it'll shoot you directly to it anyway, but look out for that. Okay. And hopefully we have some courses coming. March is the magic date. So if anyone is postpartum, it's going to be called, Postpartum Connect, and I'll have an educational series called Femme Connect with the goal of really providing education resources, community support on an individual basis on the website, but then you have your own programming that you can do kind of independently, self-paced at your own time.
Awesome. So, and are you still doing kind of telehealth type sessions? Are you still doing that if people have an interest in reaching out for that?
Yes. If you are having problems finding someone in your area or like have questions that aren't being answered in your area, I do take telehealth clients, both physical therapy and wellness. There are obvious limitations to telehealth physical therapy, but I think education and getting you it to the right people is like the best value that I can provide you. Absolutely. Or if you've been discharged from physical therapy based on your insurance limitations, like it's time for you to go now. We're no longer paying for you, but you don't feel like you're meeting the goals that you want to achieve or getting back to what you want to do. I love using telehealth as kind of that bridge between physical therapy and your goals. Right. That's a great place to utilize that platform. Awesome. So.
Fabulous. All right, y'all. So check Laurel out if you are interested, and just check her out anyway, because every time I go on her Instagram, I learn something new. So thank you so much for being here with us today. I appreciate it and hope you have a great day.
Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.